What I love about this time of year is that even though it's the NBA Finals, and of course it's the pinnacle of the postseason play where you have the champions from each respective conference going head to head, but it's also the rumors, the talk around the league of what teams are doing and gearing up for the offseason to make their roster better, whether it be for the short term or for the long term in the case of those rebuilding teams. And based on how the season ended for a handful of teams throughout the league, especially for those who fell short of expectations, there is a sense around the association that there is going to be a lot of movement this summer, with some teams acting in a sense of desperation. So much movement that it could completely change the landscape of the NBA for the foreseeable future, with some big name superstar level players wearing different uniforms next season. We already got a taste of this the past trade deadline, where we saw arguably the biggest and most shocking trade in NBA history when the Dallas Mavericks traded their franchise player and superstar to the Lakers and Luka Doncic. It's very likely we will be seeing that and more this summer once the finals conclude and teams are able to start making trade transactions. But how much are we talking about? And what are the implications of a potentially unprecedented offseason in the NBA have on the league's overall future? Well, let's talk about it. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, as it does help me out a great deal, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, when you have teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder and Indiana Pacers in the finals, while it's great for small market teams, especially for small market teams who haven't been in the finals in multiple decades, but it also means a greater sense of panic for those large market teams, the highest valued teams in the NBA, and the teams that often have high payrolls and drowning in luxury tax bills. Those teams know the kind of criticism that comes with being a global brand, being a team that has invested a great amount of money into their players, that it is unacceptable to flame out early in the playoffs, or even worse, not making the playoffs at all. Now, this isn't new, right? Every season you're going to have teams that had championship aspirations come up short. And then over the offseason, those title contending teams make moves to try and get over the hump. Sometimes overly aggressive moves that don't pay off in the long run. But the reason this offseason is going to be different in terms of both the volume of transactions, but also the degree of movement from big name players being on the move, is because teams are now fully able to see the ramifications of the new CBA, specifically those dreaded tax aprons that impose further penalties on teams that overspend. We now have 2 full years worth of data of the impacts of the new CBA, especially the second apron rule, where a team who remains above the second apron for 3 seasons in a 5-year period will automatically have their first round pick sent to the back of the round regardless of where their pick lands in the draft. This would be year 3 under the new CBA of any potential team being over the second apron. You look at some of the highest spending teams in the league right now and what they have committed on their books going into next season, like Boston, Phoenix, Cleveland, Denver, the Knicks, Lakers, Bucks, Warriors. All of these teams are racking up high bills, while some of their key core players are extension eligible and looking for big paydays. Let's take a look at a team like the Celtics. The defending champions fell short in the playoffs in large part due to Jason Tatum going down with that Achilles tear. Tatum is most likely going to be out all of next season. So the Celtics, as of right now, have the highest payroll in the NBA. They're about $17 million over the second apron. They're constrained when it comes to trades because of the second apron rules that hinder them from aggregating salaries in a trade or taking back more money than they send out, as good as they were this past season. And when Tatum does come back, they will still be a title team. But because of their payroll, they will absolutely make a big trade this offseason to get one of their bigger salaries off their books. This will come in the form of trading Drew Holiday, Porzingis, or even Derek White, or a combination thereof of those 3. But those guys moving on to other teams, while meaningful in altering the landscape of the NBA, they won't be as significant as some of the other changes that are likely to occur to teams that are going to try and maneuver their way through the luxury tax aprons. The Phoenix Suns, who attempted to go all in trading away their future, their entire future, for a super team of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, was an absolute failure to the point where they weren't even good enough to make the play-in this year in the Western Conference, and fired their 3rd head coach in 3 straight seasons. While I won't be shocked if the Suns somehow think they can try and turn things around with this crew, at the same time though, Kevin Durant's not going to want to stay in Phoenix. That's already been well documented. And there's no doubt in my mind that Kevin Durant, a superstar, will be playing for another team come next season. Beal, the Suns will try and trade him, but he's got all the say in the world right now with that no trade clause, and no team is going to be willing to take on this contract. And then, unless Booker asks out, they're going to keep their franchise player they drafted and developed into a star that he's become. But for Kevin Durant, Imagine him going to a team like the Spurs, a team that he's been linked to, by the way, putting him alongside Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox. The Spurs also have the number 2 pick where they can probably add Dylan Harper, a player they could either package in a deal to bring in another star-level talent or use him as a key rotational player in a championship run while they develop him for the future. Like, even though Kevin Durant isn't the player he was in his 20s and likely has a few good years left in his career, he's still one of the best players in the game and one of the greatest scorers of all time. You put him on a team like the Spurs, a team that is much better suited to his skill set, you're talking about a team that not only is going to be a threat for the near term with Kevin Durant and De'Aaron Fox, but a title team for years to come with the young generational talents of Wemby and Dylan Harper. But it's not going to just be Kevin Durant on the move this summer. How about Giannis Antetokounmpo? Most believe this is a foregone conclusion given the Bucks have fallen for a 3rd straight season in the first round of the playoffs, this time being especially devastating as they lost Damian Lillard to an Achilles tear that will likely keep him sidelined for all of next season. A player they went all in on and traded away future assets along with their glue guy on the court in Drew Holiday. And with Dame being out next season, the Bucks having that high payroll and limited financial flexibility and lack of draft capital to make improvements to their roster, it likely means Giannis is going to be on his way out of Milwaukee as he looks to contend for another championship. A top 5 player in the league, I personally believe he's top 3, but a player like that on the move to another team. Now, there have been rumors of the Spurs being in the mix and acquiring Giannis, which would mean Kevin Durant would no longer be an option for the Spurs there, but then you also have seen Giannis' name being linked to the Knicks, the Rockets, the Raptors, the Lakers, even though I don't understand that one because the Lakers literally have zero means to land Giannis unless they're trading one of LeBron or Luka to get him to make the money work. But regardless, you're likely to see a situation where Giannis goes to a team that is already ripe with talent and depth to make an even greater threat in the NBA. But what about a team like the Cavs? A team that finished with the best record in the East, a team that looked like the best all-around team in the Eastern Conference. Everything was working for this roster until they ran into the Pacers and got beaten pretty badly in the second round series. They've committed 90% of their payroll to their core of Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter, who they traded for at the deadline. All in for a relatively young core, but little depth beyond that. They currently have $217 million committed on their books for next season, already over the second apron, and they can't get beyond the second round of the playoffs. You better believe they're going to be looking to make some moves this offseason, including trading one, if not multiple members of their core. I wouldn't be surprised if they look to move Jarrett Allen while he still has good value and try and relieve some of that salary there. I would imagine they would even look to move Darius Garland, but they're going to be hard-pressed to find a team willing to take on his contract, especially when he hasn't been able to stay healthy and will be sidelined this whole offseason and into the beginning of next season. Another player that I feel isn't being talked about enough when it comes to his future is Zion Williamson. Another generational talent, but a talent that just cannot stay healthy. But he's yet another big name that could be suiting up for a new team this summer as the Pelicans, with their new management, they're going to assess the future of the roster and the direction they're going with after they just won 21 games last season, despite having been a luxury tax team this past year. To me, this is a team that is a blow-up candidate where they will sell off all of their assets, including DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, but the biggest name, of course, being Zion Williamson. But to me, the biggest one that I think is unlikely, but I would not be surprised to see them requesting a trade, and that's the best player in the league, 3-time MVP and Nikola Jokic. Now, the Nuggets are going to make some big changes in some fashion this summer. Whether that includes Jokic or not remains to be seen, but with the new leadership in the front office, a new coach, a team that is right up against the second apron, and a team that is only 2 seasons removed from winning a championship, they know they have to act now in order to maximize the prime of an all-time great in Nikola Jokic. As such, you could very well see guys like Michael Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon be on the move, and I wouldn't even rule out Jamal Murray, along with other assets being traded to land a big superstar like a Kevin Durant. Everything is and should be on the table for the Nuggets this offseason to go all in and doing what they can to keep Jokic happy. Now, when it comes to Jokic and his future with this team, I mean, the only way Jokic goes elsewhere this offseason is if he requests a trade. The Nuggets aren't going to blow up their team when they're fortunate enough to have the best player in the league right now on their roster. They're not going to do what the Mavs did with Luka. They would only help facilitate a trade if Jokic requests one, which would be a very uncharacteristic thing of a player like Jokic to do, but also wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And then I didn't even mention the Sixers, who could very well try and pull the plug on Paul George and do a salary dump deal to get his contract off their books. Hell, I wouldn't even be shocked if they are making calls on Joel Embiid given his contract, his age, and the fact that it's a high likelihood that Embiid's best days are behind him. In any event though, based on how things transpired this past season and the ramifications of the new CBA starting to hit home, it's very likely you could see a scenario where we see multiple top 10 level players on the move this summer in the NBA, the most movement among all-stars we've seen in the league in decades. The landscape of the league is going to look very different in just 2 months' time, and I'm here for it. I can't wait to see how things shake out. I would love to hear what you guys think though. You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.